How do you financially model what you're going to be doing on Amazon? My name is Stephen Pope and I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. And in this video, I'm going to talk through basically a 3-month estimate of what your sales could look like on Amazon. In this sheet here, I've put together a short estimate. I'm going to walk through each column, walk through all the revenue and the numbers. Maybe I need to make this a little bit bigger. Not sure if I can zoom in on this. All right, just learned how to zoom in at 150% there. All right, so in here, I've got 3 months basically advocating for what revenue could look like. So often the case on Amazon when you launch, it's very much a hockey stick. And so you kind of slowly go out and then it just starts spiking. And so this is actually a pretty common trend that we see. So let's assume for a moment, month one, we're going to do $10,000 in revenue. And I'm going to be doing this from a high level generic, like no specific category in mind. And so each category and each type of product, of course, can have its own results. Obviously, the more niche of a product you go, the less your sales are going to be, but the more the profits and the less the competition. The more generic product you get, the higher the competition, the less the margin, but generally the larger the sales. So those are kind of, the situations you can run into. So in here, referral fee. 15% in most categories. Some categories like clothing's up to 17, and there's some things that are different on this. But for the most part, 90% of what most of you are going to experience is 15%. So if you're going to gross $10,000 in month one, you're going to be paying a $1,500 referral fee. Fulfillment costs. We've seen a lot of different fulfillment costs depending on the item. And your price point, right? So obviously if you sell an item under $10, your fulfillment cost percentage is going to go way up. But on average, somewhere right around 8% feels about right. If you sell a simple wine glass, like a 5x5 box, it's going to be around $3.50, which is pretty convenient actually and not a bad deal, which is why everybody rushed to FBA. And side note, I do see that FBA is pretty much out of room, which is why we have all of those shipping constraints from the last year. Everybody is rushing to sell on Amazon. It's a gold rush right now. I'm just the dude selling shovels to the guys digging gold right now, and those guys make it out like a bandit too, don't get me wrong. But don't be surprised if your sophistication level to sell on Amazon is required to be high to keep up with everything. So with this fulfillment cost in mind, right around 8% seems about right. After we total everything up on this sheet, you're going to see that I pretty much estimate that Amazon comes out to be just over a third of a partnership on your account. So if you consider Amazon basically a third stake in your company, that's kind of where the math ends up being. So if we assume 8% on $10,000, that equates to $800. Now for the shipping cost. So this is what it costs for you to send your items into Amazon. This one was a little trickier for me to estimate, but after all is said and done, you could be somewhere around 50 cents a unit or thereabouts, right? So in the first month, you can't necessarily ship everything into Amazon, so I came out to be right around 1.8% on my shipping cost estimate, and it seemed about right. So that'd be $180 to get our first $10,000 in sales. I put a goose egg on storage fees for the first month because your items aren't even there yet, so you wouldn't be paying storage fees. And there are some caveats to storage fees because they do raise the cost during Q4 by 300%. But for the most part, even if you have a higher Q4 cost, it still comes out to be 1%. So I put storage fees at 1%. If you're hitting 2%, that is actually on the high end. And if you're above 2%, that's an extraordinarily high case. But I sincerely think 1% is probably going to be about right for anybody running an IPI score above 420. You should be right at 1% on your storage fees. Let's go over now to monthly subscription fee. Obviously, this is not what most people are calculating. Flat $40, nothing further to say there. And now for ad costs. So this is probably one that's going to be the most hotly debated in the comments section. How much do you need to spend on ads? Well, if you're trying to gross a certain number, my advice to you is to spend 10% of your desired gross spend. Now, with month one, however, I actually think you're going to need to spend way more than that to get off the ground, probably 30%. So that's why I put $3,000 into the ad cost section against a $10,000 estimated revenue. But by month two, if the revenue is going up to $30,000, you're going to be right around 10%, and it should be okay. The one thing I don't calculate for on this particular sheet is going to be your cost of goods. And so you do still have to calculate that. More often than not, your cost of goods are going to be a really big range. It could be anywhere from 15 to 30%, depending on what you're selling and what your markup looks like. Like a grocery category, for example, would have a significantly lower margin, and the cost of goods would be a higher proportion. Also, anybody selling something under $15 will also have similar challenges with margins. So that's generally why when you're trying to sell your first item on Amazon, usually makes sense to come in right around a $20 mark to make sure your margins are padded, but also low enough that you kind of have the ability to convince the consumer to place that order. So if you put your cost of goods in, that could be another 20% or whatever it might end up being. But if you look at this, you can see kind of the net, what it would look like on a revenue forecast here. Now, what I don't calculate for is the classic old crap hits the fan, right? So this is assuming things go well, right? Of course, you could have something, let's say you're selling roses for Valentine's Day, and you created your shipment to arrive at port at January 15th, and all of the sudden your boat is stuck on the water, right? So you can't go to market in a situation like that. Those are the kind of black swan events, highly improbable, unpredictable events that have great impact on your business. And you can't really plan for those quite effectively. But I will say this, the concept of just-in-time supply chain management is dead. And so if you want to gain control of your destiny, you got to factor in stuff like that. Quite frankly, I would stock a year's supply as you move forward. So when you're first starting, you got to be conservative. You got to basically plan for success, but also not overinvest into a business that you don't know if it's going to work. And so if that happens, then you need the ability to not have bought too much inventory. So it makes sense to be conservative on your first buy. You're testing the market. If you stock out, that's a great problem to have. And if you stock out, you're going to be out of stock for however long it takes you to replenish those goods. Could be 60 days, could be 90. Maybe throw in a little Chinese holiday and all the manufacturers are shut down and it takes even longer. A lot of different factors can affect you on your journey to sell on Amazon. So I've got a lot of different videos that can help you on your journey. And the video you should watch next is the one on how to grow sales. In it, I cover everything from traffic generation to conversion improvements, and you need to know how to do those things to launch your business on Amazon. Thanks for watching. My name is Stephen Pope, and I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy.